Get that boy out of my sight before I forget he is a child. The words came from Dominic Castellano's own lips. Cold. Automatic. The voice of a man who had trained himself to show no weakness, no softness, no humanity in front of his enemies. But the moment the words left his mouth, something inside him shattered. Because the boy standing near the kitchen entrance, the boy his bodyguard had just shoved aside for accidentally bumping into their table, was staring at him with eyes that stopped Dominic's heart cold. Gray-green eyes. The exact shade that Dominic saw every morning in his own mirror. The exact shade that had skipped his father's generation entirely. The exact shade that his grandmother had called the Castellano curse, because every man who carried them died violently. The boy was maybe 8 years old. His skin was the color of warm caramel, his curls tight and dark, and he was holding a plastic bin of dirty dishes that had scattered across the floor when the bodyguard pushed him. He was not crying, even though a bruise was already forming on his small arm. He was just staring at Dominic with those impossible, unmistakable eyes. And then a woman screamed, "Get your hands off my son." Dominic turned, and time stopped. She was older now. They both were. 8 years had passed since he had last seen her face, but he would have recognized her anywhere. Naomi Jackson, the only woman he had ever loved. The woman he had abandoned to protect his rise to power. The woman who was now throwing herself between his bodyguard and a child who had Dominic's eyes. If you are not already subscribed, you need to do that right now. Because what happens next in this story is going to change everything. Trust me. Hit that button and stay with me. Ma'am, step back. The bodyguard, a new hire, someone who did not know Dominic's history, reached for his weapon. You do not want to make a scene. Touch my son again, and I will make more than a scene. Naomi's voice was steady, but Dominic could see her hands shaking. She was terrified. She was also standing her ground against armed men twice her size. That was the Naomi he remembered. Stop. Dominic's voice cut through the tension like a blade. His bodyguards froze. Everyone in the restaurant froze. When Dominic Castellano spoke, people listened. He rose slowly from his chair, his eyes never leaving the boy. The boy who was now clinging to his mother's leg, watching Dominic with a mixture of fear and something else. Recognition. How was that possible? The child had never met him, could not possibly know who he was. And yet something in those gray-green eyes said otherwise. Everyone out. Dominic's voice was quiet, but it carried. Clear the restaurant. Now. His men moved instantly, ushering confused diners toward the exits, pressing cash into protesting hands, making apologies that were really threats. Within 3 minutes, the restaurant was empty except for Dominic, Naomi, and the boy, and the truth that hung between them like a loaded gun. His name. Dominic's voice cracked on the words. What is his name? Naomi did not answer. She was backing toward the kitchen, pulling her son with her, her eyes wild with the kind of fear Dominic had seen in men seconds before they died. Naomi. He took a step forward, and she flinched. I am not going to hurt you. I am not going to hurt him. But I need you to tell me his name. Why? The word came out as a whisper. So you can add him to your list of things to control? So you can claim him like property? He is not yours, Dominic. He has never been yours. Look at his eyes. Dominic's voice broke. Look at his eyes and tell me he is not mine. The silence that followed was deafening. Naomi's face crumpled, and for one terrible moment, Dominic thought she might collapse. But she was stronger than that. She had always been stronger than anyone gave her credit for. Marcus. The name came out like a confession. His name is Marcus Elijah Jackson. He is 8 years old. And you are right. He is your son. Dominic felt the floor tilt. Beneath his feet, he had killed men, ordered executions, built an empire on blood and betrayal and the kind of violence that most people could not even imagine. He had done things that would haunt him until the day he died and probably beyond. But nothing had ever hit him as hard as those 4 words. He is your son. Why? The word came out strangled. Why did you not tell me? Tell you? Naomi laughed, and it was the most bitter sound he had ever heard. Tell you how? You disappeared, Dominic. One day you were talking about our future, and the next day every number I had was disconnected, every address was abandoned, and every person I asked about you either pretended they did not know your name or told me I would end up dead if I kept looking. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Her scream echoed through the empty restaurant. You chose your empire over me, over us, and I made my peace with that a long time ago. But you do not get to stand there now and pretend you had no choice. You had a choice, and you chose wrong. Marcus tugged at his mother's sleeve. His voice was small, confused, but there was an edge to it that seemed too old for a child his age. Mama? Is that him? Is that my father? Naomi's face went pale. Marcus, baby, we need to leave. You told me he had to go away. You told me he did not know about me. The boy looked at Dominic, and there was no fear in his eyes now. Only questions. Only the desperate need to understand. Did you know? Did you know about me, and just not want me? Dominic felt something inside him crack open. Something that had been frozen for so long he had forgotten it existed. He dropped to one knee, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. His bodyguards shifted nervously. Dominic Castellano never knelt to anyone, but he ignored them. I did not know. His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. I swear to you on my life, I did not know you existed. If I had known, what? Naomi's voice was cold. What would you have done? Would you have married me? Brought us into your world? Raised our son surrounded by the kind of violence that follows you everywhere? Dominic had no answer. Because she was right. Even if he had known, what could he have offered them? A life of looking over their shoulders? A childhood spent in safe houses? A father whose name was spoken in whispers and whose enemies would use them as leverage? He had made his choice 8 years ago, and now he was living with the consequences. But something about this felt wrong. Something about the timing, the circumstances, the way everything had unfolded felt orchestrated. Dominic had not survived this long by ignoring his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that there was more to this story. How did I not know? He rose slowly, his mind racing. I had people watching you after I left. I needed to make sure you were safe. They reported, he stopped. They reported that you got married. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Victor Solano, his right-hand man, his closest advisor, the man who had been with him since they were teenage boys running errands for the old bosses. Victor had been the one to deliver that news. Victor had shown him photographs. Naomi in a white dress, a church somewhere in Virginia, a man Dominic did not recognize. Victor had told him that Naomi had moved on, that she was happy, that she had found someone better. And Dominic, heartbroken and relieved and determined to become the man he had set out to be, had believed him. When you left, Naomi's voice was quiet now, defeated. When you disappeared, I tried to find you. For weeks, I went to every place we had ever been together. I asked everyone who might know where you were. And then a lawyer showed up at my door. Dominic felt ice spreading through his veins. What lawyer? He would not tell me his name. He just said that he represented an interested party who wanted to help me start a new life. He had an envelope full of cash and a one-way ticket to Virginia. You took it. I was pregnant, alone, and terrified. Of course I took it. Naomi's eyes were hard. The lawyer made it clear that if I tried to find you, if I ever told anyone who Marcus's father was, there would be consequences. I did not know exactly what that meant, but I knew enough to be scared. Go ahead and like this video right now if you are feeling this story. Drop a comment too, and let me know what you think is about to happen. Because I promise you, you are not ready for this next part. Dominic's mind was racing. A lawyer with cash and threats. A story about a marriage that never happened. 8 years of lies designed to keep him and Naomi apart. This was not a coincidence. This was a conspiracy, and there was only one person who could have orchestrated it. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. Dominic. Victor's voice was warm, familiar, utterly convincing. How is the dinner meeting going? Close the deal. Where are you right now, Victor? A pause. So brief that most people would have missed it. But Dominic heard it, and it confirmed everything. At the office, going over the quarterly numbers. Why? Is something wrong? Stay there. I am coming to see you. Of course. Is everything? Dominic hung up before Victor could finish the question. He turned to Naomi, and he could see the fear in her eyes. She did not know Victor, not really, but she knew enough about Dominic's world to understand that something very bad was about to happen. Come with me. Dominic's voice was urgent. Both of you. Right now. I am not going anywhere with you. Naomi, listen to me. He grabbed her shoulders, and she flinched but did not pull away. I do not know who set this up or why, but someone has been playing us both for 8 years. Someone wanted to make sure I never knew about Marcus. And if they went to that much trouble to keep us apart, they are not going to be happy that we found each other. You think we are in danger? I think you have been in danger since the moment you got on that plane to Virginia. You just did not know it. The color drained from Naomi's face. And then Marcus spoke, his small voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "There are men outside, Mama. They have guns." Dominic spun toward the window. 3 black SUVs had pulled up to the curb, and men in tactical gear were taking positions around the building. Professional. Coordinated. The kind of team that did not leave witnesses. This was not a warning. This was an execution. Back door. Dominic grabbed Marcus with one arm and Naomi with the other, pulling them toward the kitchen. "Now, move." "What is happening?" Naomi's voice was high with panic. "Who are those men?" Dominic did not answer, because he already knew who had sent them. The only question was why Victor wanted them dead. The kitchen was a maze of stainless steel and steam. Dominic moved on instinct, his body remembering the layout from the security sweep his team had done when they first arrived. Back exit. Loading dock. Alley that led to a side street where one of his backup vehicles should be waiting. Should be. But if Victor had planned this, if Victor had been planning this for 8 years, then nothing was certain anymore. "Hold on to me." Dominic lifted Marcus onto his hip. The boy was lighter than he expected, small for his age, and pushed through the back door into the alley. Cold night air hit his face. The alley was dark, empty, and for one desperate moment, Dominic allowed himself to hope. Then the gunfire started. Bullets sparked off the dumpster 3 feet to his left. Dominic dove behind a delivery truck, shielding Marcus with his body, pulling Naomi down beside him. She was screaming, or maybe that was him. He could not tell anymore. "Stay down." He pushed them both lower, drawing his weapon with one hand, while keeping his body between his family and the shooters. His family. The word felt foreign and familiar at the same time. Footsteps. Coming fast. At least 4 shooters, maybe more, approaching from both ends of the alley. Professional. Formation. No escape route. This is how I die, Dominic thought. Not in some glorious final showdown with my enemies, but in a dirty alley protecting a woman I abandoned and a son I never knew. There were worse ways to go. He raised his weapon, preparing to make them pay for every inch, when the night exploded. Not gunfire. Something bigger. A vehicle smashing through a chain-link fence at the end of the alley, headlights blazing, engine roaring like an angry god. The shooters scattered, diving for cover, and Dominic saw his chance. "Go." He shoved Naomi toward the vehicle, covering their retreat with 3 precisely aimed shots that dropped 2 of the attackers. Marcus was still in his arms, face buried against his shoulder, small hands gripping his jacket with desperate strength. The vehicle, a heavily armored SUV, screeched to a halt beside them. The back door flew open, and a face Dominic recognized appeared in the opening. Antonio Marchetti, his head of personal security. The only man in his organization that Victor had never been able to control. "Get in." Now, Dominic threw himself into the vehicle, pulling Naomi in behind him, and Antonio floored it before the door was even closed. Bullets pinged off the armored panels as they tore out of the alley and into the night. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the roar of the engine, the distant wail of sirens, and Marcus's muffled sobs against Dominic's chest. Then Naomi's voice, shaking but steady. "What the hell is happening?" Dominic looked at her, at this woman he had loved and lost, and just found again, and told her the truth. "Someone inside my organization has been planning this for years. Someone who knew about you, about Marcus, about everything. And now that I know the truth, they are trying to eliminate all of us." "Who?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "My brother." And that is where we are going to pause part 1. I need you to subscribe right now if you have not already, because part 2 is going to reveal secrets that will change everything you think you know about this story. Drop a comment and tell me who you think Victor really is. Is he just a traitor? Or is there something darker going on? Stay with me. The safe house was a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood in Hoboken. One of a dozen properties Dominic owned under shell companies that not even his accountants knew about. He had purchased them over the years for situations exactly like this. Situations where trust was a luxury he could not afford. Marcus had finally fallen asleep in the upstairs bedroom, exhausted by fear and confusion. Naomi sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she had not touched, staring at nothing. Dominic stood by the window, watching the street, his mind running through every interaction he had ever had with Victor Solano. 20 years of partnership, 20 years of trust, and all of it, every moment, had been a lie. "Tell me." Naomi's voice broke the silence. Tell me everything. Dominic turned to face her. In the dim light of the kitchen, with her hair escaping its practical bun and her eyes red from crying, she had never looked more beautiful to him, and he had never felt less worthy of her. Victor and I grew up together. Same neighborhood in South Boston. Same crew when we were teenagers. He was always the smart one, the planner, the strategist. I was the muscle. Together, we climbed the ranks faster than anyone thought possible. And you trusted him. With my life. Literally. There were times when Victor was the only reason I survived. He took bullets for me. He killed for me. He was closer to me than my own blood. Naomi's expression did not change. What happened between us? When you left? Dominic sat down across from her, suddenly feeling the weight of every choice he had ever made. Victor told me that you were a liability, that our enemies would use you against me, that if I wanted to rise to the top, I needed to cut all ties to anything that could be exploited. He paused, the words like acid in his throat. He told me it was the only way to keep you safe. So you left. I left. I changed all my numbers. I moved to a new location. I became someone else, someone harder, colder, someone who did not have room in his life for love. Dominic's hands clenched into fists. A few months later, Victor showed me photographs. You in a white dress. A church in Virginia. A man I did not recognize. My cousin's wedding. Naomi's voice was flat. I was a bridesmaid. I know that now. But Victor told me you had gotten married. That you had moved on. And his voice broke. I wanted you to be happy. I wanted you to have the kind of life I could never give you. So I let myself believe it. For 8 years. For 8 years. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Dominic could see the calculations happening behind Naomi's eyes. The anger, the betrayal, the desperate need to understand how everything had gone so wrong. There is more. Dominic forced himself to continue. 3 months ago, a journalist started investigating my organization. She found out about our relationship, about you, and about Marcus. She was going to publish everything. Naomi's face went pale. I know. She showed up at my apartment. At Marcus's school. She kept saying that if I gave her an exclusive, she could get me into witness protection. Did you talk to her? No. But there was something in Naomi's voice, a hesitation that told Dominic she was not telling him everything. Naomi. She closed her eyes. I thought about it. For one moment, I thought about telling her everything. About destroying you the way you destroyed me. Dominic absorbed this without reaction. He deserved that. He deserved far worse. What stopped you? Marcus. Naomi's eyes opened, and there were tears on her cheeks. I looked at our son, and I thought about what it would mean for him to grow up as the child who helped bring down a mafia boss. The attention, the danger, the questions that would follow him for the rest of his life. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I could not do that to him, no matter how much I hated you. The journalist. Dominic leaned forward. What happened to her? She stopped calling about 2.5 months ago. Her editor told me she had been reassigned, but I did not believe it. Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. That was when Victor's man showed up. Everything inside Dominic went cold. Victor sent someone to you. A man in a black suit. He had photographs of Marcus walking home from school. He said that if I knew what was good for me, I would keep my mouth shut and stay far away from anyone connected to you. He threatened our son. He made it clear that Marcus's safety depended on my silence. Dominic rose from the table so abruptly that his chair crashed backward. The rage that flooded through him was unlike anything he had felt in years. Hot and violent and utterly consuming. Victor had not just lied to him. Victor had not just manipulated him. Victor had threatened his child. There were some things that could not be forgiven. If you are still with me, hit that like button right now. Because what you are about to find out is going to shock you. This story just took a turn that even I did not see coming. Stay with me. There is something else you need to know. Naomi's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Something I did not tell you before, because I was not sure if I could trust you. Tell me. The journalist. Before she disappeared, she gave me a flash drive. She said it was a backup of everything she had found. All of her research, her evidence, her recordings. She told me to keep it safe, that if anything happened to her, I should take it to the FBI. Dominic's heart stopped. You have evidence against Victor? I have evidence against everyone. Naomi met his eyes, and there was something fierce in her gaze. Including you. Every crime you have ever committed, every order you have ever given, every body that was buried on your command. It is all there. Dominic stood frozen, his mind racing. Through the implications. If that flash drive got into the wrong hands, or the right ones, depending on how you looked at it, his entire empire would crumble. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. Everything he had built would be destroyed. And yet, why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something. Naomi rose from her chair and crossed the room until she was standing directly in front of him. Close enough to touch. Close enough to hurt. I have the power to destroy you right now. I have had that power for months. And I have not used it. Why not? Because of Marcus. Her voice cracked on their son's name. Because no matter what you have done, no matter who you are, he deserves to know his father. And I cannot give him that if you are locked up in a federal prison or dead at the hands of your enemies. Dominic stared at her. This woman who had every reason to hate him, who had been handed the weapon to destroy him, and who had chosen mercy instead. In that moment, he understood something fundamental about the difference between them. She was a better person than he could ever be. I am going to destroy Victor. His voice was low, dangerous. I am going to burn his entire world to the ground. But I need your help to do it. My help. Victor knows all of my moves. He has been studying me for 20 years. He knows how I think, how I plan, how I fight. But he does not know you. He has spent 8 years underestimating you, treating you like a problem to be managed instead of a threat to be feared. Naomi's eyes narrowed. What are you asking me to do? I am asking you to help me take down the man who has been threatening our son. The man who murdered a journalist to cover his tracks. The man who has been lying to both of us for almost a decade. And then what? After Victor is gone, what happens to us? Dominic reached out and took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her in 8 years, and the contact sent electricity through his entire body. I do not know. I cannot promise you that everything will be okay. I cannot promise you that my past will not catch up with us. But I can promise you this. I will never, ever leave you or Marcus again. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Naomi was silent for a long moment. Then she squeezed his hand, and something in her expression shifted. Okay, tell me the plan. But before Dominic could respond, his phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. It was from Victor. I know where you are. I know who is with you. And I know about the flash drive. You have 24 hours to return it and surrender your organization to me. If you refuse, I will kill the boy first, make you watch, and then take everything anyway. Clock starts now. Dominic felt the blood drain from his face. He looked up at Naomi, and he saw his own terror reflected in her eyes. 24 hours. 24 hours to save his son from the only man who knew all of his secrets. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you think Dominic should do. Should he fight? Should he surrender? Should he run? I want to hear your theories because this situation is about to get a whole lot worse. The next 12 hours were a blur of planning and preparation. Dominic called in every favor he was owed, activated every asset he had kept hidden from Victor, and reached out to allies who had their own reasons to want Victor destroyed. By dawn, he had assembled a small army of men who were loyal to him personally, not to the organization, but to Dominic Castellano himself. But it was not enough. Victor had 20 years of intelligence on Dominic's operations. He knew every safe house, every backup plan, every contingency. Going head-to-head with him in a straight fight would be suicide. They needed something else. Something Victor would never expect. I have an idea. Naomi's voice was calm as she stood over the kitchen table, where Dominic had spread out maps and photographs and lists of Victor's known associates. But you are not going to like it. Tell me. Victor's message said he wants the flash drive. That means he does not have it yet. He knows I have it, but he does not know where it is. So we give it to him. Naomi held up a hand before Dominic could interrupt. Not the real one. A copy. A fake that looks exactly like the original, but contains something else entirely. Dominic's eyes narrowed. What kind of something else? The journalist was investigating more than just your organization. She had files on Victor too. Things he has done that even you do not know about. Murders, bribes, connections to federal agencies that would destroy him if they ever came to light. You are saying we plant evidence against Victor on the flash drive. I am saying we give Victor exactly what he wants, a flash drive full of damning information. Only the information is about him, not about you. And when he plugs it into his system to verify the contents, it uploads everything to the cloud, to the media, to the other families. Naomi smiled, and it was the most dangerous smile Dominic had ever seen. Victor has spent 8 years underestimating me. It is time he learned exactly how big of a mistake that was. For the first time since this nightmare began, Dominic felt something like hope. But hope, as he had learned long ago, was a dangerous thing. The meeting was set for midnight at the same warehouse in Newark where Dominic and Victor had conducted their first major deal together 20 years ago. It felt appropriate, ending things where they had begun. Victor arrived with an army. 50 men, heavily armed, positioned throughout the warehouse and on the surrounding rooftops. Dominic came alone, as instructed, with the flash drive in his pocket and a prayer on his lips. You actually showed up. Victor emerged from the shadows, looking exactly as he always had, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with a smile that could charm saints and sinners alike. I have to admit, I am impressed. I thought you would run. Running was never really my style. No, it was not. Victor circled him slowly, like a predator examining its prey. That was always my role. The one who cleaned up your messes, who planned your escapes, who made sure you survived long enough to become the legend you are today. The legend you created, you mean? Victor's smile widened. Finally, you understand. I understand that you have been manipulating me for 20 years. That you kept Naomi from me. That you threatened my son. What I do not understand is why. Victor stopped circling. For a long moment, he was silent, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. More honest. Do you know what it is like to be the shadow? To be the one standing behind the throne, watching someone else take credit for everything you built? I made you, Dominic. Every victory you ever had was because of my planning. Every enemy you ever defeated was because of my strategy. And yet you are the one they fear. You are the one they respect. You are the one whose name will live on in history. So this is about ego. This is about justice. Victor's eyes burned with decades of resentment. You got to be the king while I did all the work. And when you fell in love with that woman, when you started talking about walking away from everything we had built, I knew I had to act. I could not let you throw away our legacy for some black girl from the wrong side of town. Dominic felt the rage rising in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. The plan depended on Victor talking. The longer he talked, the more time Naomi had to complete her part of the operation. So you lied. You told me she got married. I showed you what you needed to see. And it worked, did it not? You became everything I knew you could be. The most feared man on the eastern seaboard. A legend. And Marcus? Was threatening my son part of your master plan? Victor's smile faltered for just a moment. The boy was unexpected. I did not know she was pregnant when I arranged for her to disappear. When I found out, I thought about eliminating the problem, but I decided it was unnecessary. As long as you never found out about him, he was harmless. But then the journalists started digging. And you decided to have dinner at a restaurant in New Jersey where Naomi happened to work. Honestly, Dominic, it is almost like fate wanted you to find out the truth. Victor shook his head. I had to accelerate my timeline. I had to remove all the loose ends before you could figure out what was really happening. Loose ends like me. Loose ends like your son. Like your woman. Like anyone who might testify about the things I have done. Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. I did not want it to come to this, old friend. But you left me no choice. Dominic did not flinch. Before you pull that trigger, there is something you should know. What is that? Your men are not your men anymore. Victor's smile froze. He looked around the warehouse, at the 50 armed soldiers he had brought to ensure his victory, and saw something that made his face go pale. Every single one of them had their weapons trained on him. What? How? You spent 20 years studying me, Victor. Learning my moves, my strategies, my weaknesses. But you never bothered to learn who I actually am. Dominic stepped closer, close enough to see the fear dawning in Victor's eyes. I am not just a figurehead. I am not just a name. I am a man who inspires loyalty, real loyalty, the kind that does not break when someone offers more money or makes better promises. These men are not here because you pay them. They are here because I save their lives, their families, their futures. This is a trick. This is the truth. Something you have not told in so long. You have forgotten what it sounds like. Dominic pulled out his phone. About 3 hours ago, my people reached out to every soldier in your organization. They showed them evidence of the things you have done, the murders, the bribes, the deals with federal agents. And they gave each of them a choice. Stand with you and die, or stand with me and live. You are bluffing. Check your phone. Victor's hand was shaking as he pulled out his device. The screen was filled with notifications, messages from his lieutenants, his captains, his most trusted allies. All of them saying the same thing. "We are out. Castellano showed us the truth." "No." Victor's voice was a whisper. "No, this is not possible. The flash drive you wanted?" Dominic held it up, letting the dim light glint off its surface. "It was never about protecting myself. It was about destroying you. Every crime you have ever committed, every body you have ever buried, every secret you have ever kept, it is all on here. And in about 30 seconds, it is going to be uploaded to every news outlet, every law enforcement agency, and every rival family on the eastern seaboard." Victor's face twisted with rage. He raised his gun, finger tightening on the trigger, and then a red dot appeared on his forehead. "I would not do that if I were you." Naomi's voice echoed through the warehouse as she stepped out of the shadows, a rifle in her hands and a smile on her face. "You spent 8 years underestimating me, Victor. Big mistake." The gun fell from Victor's hand. He dropped to his knees, broken, defeated. The man who had controlled Dominic's life for 2 decades reduced to nothing in the space of a single night. "What happens now?" Victor's voice was barely audible. Dominic looked at Naomi, at the woman who had raised his son alone, who had survived his abandonment and Victor's threats and 8 years of fear and loneliness. The woman who had just helped him destroy his oldest friend and greatest enemy. "Now," Dominic said, "you answer for what you have done. To me, to her, to our son." And then, for the first time in 20 years, Victor Solano began to cry. "We are almost at the end, but part 3 is going to bring everything together in a way you cannot imagine. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, because this conclusion is going to stay with you for a long time." The trial of Victor Solano was the biggest criminal case in a decade. Federal prosecutors had everything they needed: the journalist's research, Naomi's flash drive, testimony from dozens of former associates who had turned on Victor the moment they learned the truth. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable, devastating. Victor was convicted on 47 counts, including murder, racketeering, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. The judge called him the most dangerous and deceptive criminal this court has ever seen. Dominic watched the sentencing from the back of the courtroom, hidden behind dark glasses and a hat pulled low over his face. He had not been called as a witness. The prosecutors had enough evidence without him, and Dominic's lawyers had worked miracles to keep his name out of the official record. But he needed to see it. He needed to see the man who had stolen 8 years of his life dragged away in chains. Victor looked up as the guards approached to take him into custody. His eyes scanned the courtroom, searching, until they found Dominic in the shadows. For a long moment, the 2 men who had been brothers stared at each other. Then Victor smiled, a small, sad, broken smile, and shook his head. "You win," he mouthed. And then he was gone. Dominic should have felt satisfied. He should have felt victorious. But all he felt was empty. 20 years of partnership, 20 years of trust, and all of it had been a lie. He rose from his seat and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, the autumn sun was warm on his face. The streets were crowded with people going about their normal lives, unaware that they were walking past one of the most powerful criminals in the country. But Dominic was not thinking about power anymore. He was thinking about a little boy with gray-green eyes who was waiting for him at home. His son. His family, the thing he had never known he wanted until he almost lost it. If this story is touching your heart, I need you to smash that like button right now. Comment below and tell me how you are feeling. We are in the final stretch, and I promise you, the ending is going to make everything worth it. The brownstone in Hoboken had become their home in the months since Victor's arrest. Dominic had officially stepped back from the organization, not retired, exactly, but moved into an advisory role that allowed him to distance himself from the daily violence and corruption. He had transferred significant resources into legitimate businesses, established trust funds that could not be traced back to anything illegal, and begun the long process of trying to become something other than a monster. It was not easy. Some nights, the old urges came back, the cold calculation, the casual willingness to do whatever it took to win. But then Marcus would call him for help with homework, or Naomi would brush her hand against his as she walked past, and the darkness would recede. He was learning. Slowly, painfully, he was learning how to be human again. Dom. Marcus's voice drifted down from upstairs. It was still strange to hear his son call him that. Not Dad. Not yet, but something closer than Mr. Castellano or Sir. Progress. What is it, buddy? Can you come up here? I need help with something. Dominic climbed the stairs, his joints protesting slightly from the fight he had gotten into last week. Even in his advisory role, there were times when violence was unavoidable. But he was trying to be more careful now. He had people who depended on him. Marcus was sitting on his bed, a photo album open in his lap. It was the one Naomi had kept through the years. Pictures of Marcus as a baby, as a toddler, at his first day of school. All the moments Dominic had missed. I was looking at these, Marcus said, not meeting his eyes. Trying to figure out which ones I would have wanted you to be there for. Dominic sat down beside his son, careful to leave a little space. Between them, trust was still being built. It could not be rushed. Which ones did you pick? Marcus pointed to a photograph of a Little League game. He was maybe 6 in the picture, holding a bat that was almost as big as he was, a huge grin on his face. This one. We won the championship that day. I hit the winning run. Your mom told me about that. She said you were the star of the team. Coach said I had natural talent. Marcus was quiet for a moment. He also said I would have been even better with a dad teaching me how to catch. The words hit Dominic like a physical blow. He had missed so much. So many moments that could never be recovered. So many opportunities to be the father his son deserved. I am sorry. The words came out rough, barely above a whisper. I know that does not fix anything. I know that I cannot go back and change what happened. But I need you to know that if I could have been there for you, for all of it, I would have. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he leaned against Dominic's side. Mom says you are trying. She says that is all anyone can do. Your mom is a very smart woman. She also says you have really good taste in women. Marcus looked up with a grin that was pure mischief. She thinks you should marry her. Dominic felt his heart stop. She said that. Not in those words exactly. But I can tell. She looks at you different now. Like she is not scared anymore. Dominic thought about Naomi. About the woman who had survived his abandonment and Victor's threats and 8 years of raising their son alone. The woman who had helped him destroy his greatest enemy and then stood beside him through the trial and the fallout and the long process of rebuilding. The woman who had every reason to hate him and had chosen something else instead. Do you think she would say yes? Marcus's grin widened. There is only one way to find out. Go ahead and subscribe right now if you have not already. Turn on those notifications. Because what happens next is the moment you have been waiting for. Dominic found Naomi in the garden behind the brownstone, tending to the roses she had planted in the spring. She was wearing jeans and an old sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dirt smudged on her cheek. She had never looked more beautiful. Marcus told me you needed to talk to me. She did not look up from the roses. He also told me to act surprised, which means you two have been plotting something. Guilty as charged. Naomi finally turned to face him, and there was something in her eyes, something soft and hopeful and terrified all at once. Dominic, let me say this. He crossed the distance between them and took her hands in his. I know I do not deserve you. I know I do not deserve Marcus. I know that I spent the best years of your life running from my own demons while you were here, raising our son, building a life without me. But I am here now, and I am not leaving. Not ever again. That is a big promise. It is, and I intend to keep it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, not flashy, not ostentatious, just a simple diamond on a gold band. The kind of ring a law student might have dreamed about a lifetime ago. Naomi Jackson, I have loved you since the moment I met you. I have loved you through 8 years of separation and lies and pain. And I will love you until the day I die. Will you marry me? Naomi stared at the ring for a long moment. Then she looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. You are an idiot. Is that a yes? That is an absolute, unequivocal, I cannot believe I am doing this yes. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he kissed her, really kissed her, for the first time in 8 years. And when they finally pulled apart, breathless and crying and laughing all at once, they heard cheering from the upstairs window. Marcus was there, pumping his fist in the air, his gray-green eyes bright with joy. Their son, their family, the thing that neither of them had ever expected to find. forged in the fires of betrayal and redemption. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony in the brownstones' garden. Only a few people attended: close friends, trusted allies, the handful of people who knew the truth about Dominic's past and had chosen to stand by him anyway. Marcus served as ring bearer and best man simultaneously, a role he took very seriously. He walked down the aisle with the rings on a velvet pillow, his expression solemn and proud. When Dominic saw Naomi walking toward him in a simple white dress, her natural hair crowned with flowers, he felt something crack open inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for so long he had forgotten it existed. Hope. The ceremony was short and sweet. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises to trust, to forgive, to choose each other every single day. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus cheered so loudly that the neighbors probably heard. And when Dominic kissed his bride, he knew that every mistake he had ever made, every choice that had led him down the wrong path, had somehow brought him here. To this moment, to this woman, to this child. It was not absolution. He would carry his sins to his grave. But it was something close to grace. After the ceremony, after the toasts and the cake and the dancing, Dominic found himself alone on the porch, watching the sun set over the city. Naomi came up behind him, slipping her arms around his waist and resting her head against his back. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything I missed. Everything I almost lost." He turned to face her, pulling her into his arms. 8 years. I missed 8 years of Marcus's life. His first steps. His first words. His first day of school. I can never get that back. No, Naomi agreed. You cannot. But you can be there for everything that comes next. I will be. I swear to God, I will be. I know. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his jaw. That is why I married you. Because I believe you. Because I trust you. Because I think the man you are becoming is worth waiting for. Even after everything I put you through? Even after everything. She smiled, and it was the smile he had fallen in love with a decade ago. We cannot change the past, Dominic. But we can build something new. Something better. Together. He kissed her then, long and slow, and when they finally pulled apart, Marcus was standing in the doorway with a plate of cake in each hand. Are you guys going to be gross all night? Because I saved you some cake, but I am not waiting forever. Naomi laughed. Dominic laughed. And for the first time and longer than he could remember, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. They were not a perfect family. They would never be a perfect family. There was too much history, too much pain, too many secrets that would take years to fully unravel. But they were a family, and that was enough. That was everything. 1 year later, Dominic stood at the edge of a soccer field, watching his son score the winning goal in the championship game. Naomi was beside him, her hand in his, her eyes bright with tears. Marcus crossed the field at a dead sprint, throwing himself into his father's arms. Dominic caught him, lifting him high, and for one perfect moment, nothing else existed. Not the empire he had built, not the blood on his hands, not the enemies who still plotted against him or the ghosts who still haunted his dreams. Just this, just them, just the family he had almost lost and would spend the rest of his life protecting. I love you, Dad. Marcus's voice was muffled against his shoulder. It was the first time he had used that word, Dad, and it broke something inside Dominic that he had not even known was whole. I love you too, son. His voice cracked on the words, and he did not care who saw. I love you so much. Naomi wrapped her arms around both of them, and they stood there together, mother, father, son, as the crowd cheered around them. A family forged in fire. A love that had survived everything. A second chance that neither of them had deserved, but both had fought for. And in that moment, Dominic Castellano understood. Something he had never understood before. Power was not about money or fear or the ability to destroy your enemies. Power was about this. About having something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. Something worth changing for. He had spent his whole life building an empire. Now, finally, he had found something more important. He had found his way home. That is the end of this story, and if you made it all the way here, I need you to do 3 things for me. First, hit that like button as hard as you can because it really helps the channel grow. Second, drop a comment and tell me what this story meant to you. Did Dominic deserve his redemption? Would you have forgiven him? I want to hear your thoughts. And third, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. I have so many more coming, and I cannot wait to share them with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying until the end. And I will see you in the next one.